Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, Dave. You sound a little digital, though.
Oh boy, okay.
No, you're okay now.
Oh, good. Okay, so we're waiting on Ford, and there's some problem with the video. It looks like. Are you not able to turn on your video?
Let me see here. It says you can also. Okay, so the host has stopped it. So
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, if you want me to walk you through it, or I can call you on the phone real quick.
Carla's on the back end right now, so
Okay.
she may be able to fix it. But
Okay.
yeah, there's a way to like click it. There's a setting, right?
Yeah. So if you go to the panelist setting and you go to the three little buttons, and it should give her, or the three little dots, it should give her an option to allow the panelists to show their video or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Carla, can you hear us?
If she makes me a co-host, Dave, I can do it also.
You just made me the host. Let me see if. All right. So hide non-video participants. Rename, mute my audio. If you give Carla, if you give Jason the, I'm sorry about this. If you can give Jason, hand him over the ability to be a host. He thinks he. Oh, there's me. I'm on.
Okay. Will you hand the host back to me?
Sure. How do I do that?
Oh, you click beside me, and then it should say more.
Let's see. Make host. There it is. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, everybody waiting out there. We're just getting our ducks in a row here.
You know, I am much prettier just as a blob on the screen.
I completely disagree. And I'm wondering if Ford's having a hard time getting on. Let me go look and see if he is. I'm gonna give him a quick call. I'm gonna put myself on mute and call Ford. Ford just made it on.
All right, let's see. Oh, for some reason, you've disabled my video.
Okay, I think Carla is working on that. She was able to get me up and going. We were having that issue a minute ago. Carla, do you know, are you working on seeing what you can do about these guys?
Yeah, you were the one who changed your own video setting, though.
Okay.
What did you do to make it pop up?
You know what? I just handed it back to you. I didn't do anything special. So you two, you have the three dots up there. Is there any setting? All right.
No, I don't, Dave. I don't have that option because it was when you were the host that you had that option.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and get started? And we'll work on this in the background and hopefully get you two with the ability to see so you can see yourselves. So sorry about that. We'll continue to work on this.
So Jason and I are like dark.
No, we're gonna get you fixed.
Well, that sounds grim.
Yeah, I know.
Ford, I said I was much better looking this way.
Hey, well, you know, I don't need to dress up as much.
Yeah, everything on the settings says that the video is on for you guys. So why don't you go ahead and get the conversation started? We have a few guests with us right now, and in the meantime, we'll just try to see what's going on with this video setting stuff.
Oh, come on, really?
Well, we're working on it, Ford. We don't know what's causing this, and we are
All right.
continuing. Yeah,
Well, then we'll start in dark mode. Are we live now or not?
we are.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome everybody. Sorry to probably not burden you, but maybe frustrate you with 4 minutes worth of chatter. You got technical difficulties here today. So me, that's Ford Green, the mayor, and Jason Weber, our fire chief, are dark visually, but we are here audio on the audio. So I'd like to welcome Fire Chief Jason Weber to our twice a month open time with Mayor Ford Green. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Ford. I look forward to this conversation.
Me too. So let's just jump right into it. We're coming up now on fire season with the combination of the high winds that we had for multiple days last week and today's temperature. I would imagine that you as the fire chief, I certainly know I am as a lifelong resident of the Lost Valley, are starting to get a little nervous about fire season. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, nothing tells us that this is going to be any different than what we've seen over the last 5 years. And when we look at our long-term predictive services work, we know really a good portion of the north side of the state, and especially the coastal region, is in a drought. And, they're classifying it as a severe drought. And we also know that, our fuels are already stressed. One, we humans have taken fire away from the natural cycle. Which is challenging. You got it, Dave. And then the second piece is that our climate's changing, and both of those are problematic in themselves. And one of the reasons why we are aggressively pursuing change and really trying to both prepare the community, but also the wildlands, which we've moved into as humans and really have planted and created ourselves. When you look at San Anselmo, turn of the century, 1900, it looked very different than it does today.
It did. It looked barren. The hills were bald. There were very few trees, and the trees that the residents planted were like yucca style trees. They were very xeric, arid type trees, and it's way different now, isn't it?
It is very different. And the indigenous people that were here on these lands before we settled, used fire as a tool, which improved grazing lands for deer and other animals that, were a part of their culture and life. So it was a healthy ecosystem. And right now, in my opinion, we don't have that. And what we're going to try to do is take 100 years of planting and building homes into the wildlands and slowly start to adjust that. And I say slowly because it's not something that can occur overnight. But I think, based on the passage of Measure C, well over 70%, our constituents realize that this is a problem and we have to make an investment to start to change that tide. So we're in this together.
So to give us an outline, Measure C spawned the Marin Wildlife Prevention Authority by an overwhelming margin. People rightfully are very concerned about fire. We're at high risk here in Marin. As you noted, the fuels already are stressed. You add the wind on top of that and give it 2 or 3 months of cooking, and we've got a dangerous situation. So what are some of the things in the near term that the agency or the authority is doing or looking to do that you want to inform people about?
So yes, great. And there are 3 primary goals. One, it's get people out alive. So that focuses on the defensible space around the home. It also focuses on our alert and warning system. It's improvements of our evacuation routes. It's getting people out alive, right? And that's the first and foremost piece. Second is, how do we protect their home, which is generally their greatest investment, from being lost? And that encompasses that defensible space that's really important. It encompasses, the right plants in the right places, and then hardening the home. And we hear that term. What does it harden the home? I don't want a brick house. I like the house I have. Well, it means that embers, when embers rain down on the house, they're not going to get into places that will start the house on fire. And then what we start to see with that is home to home ignition from radiant heat and other things. So that second piece is protect the home. And the third is, and this will be further down on the priority list, is how do we start to change the landscape so there's a lower intensity fire regime. And the problem we have now is there's so much dead and down material and so much material that we really can have explosive fire growth. And so later down in Measure C's path is going to be to start to adjust that. That's, in some cases, mechanically removing or reducing fuel. In other cases, it's controlled burns. It's changing the landscape. And we're going to start with closest to the home and work our way out if that concept makes sense.
Well, one of the, you noted that the native peoples used fire as an environmental regulator, and part of the reason, or a good portion of the reason, why we find ourselves greatly at risk now is the development of a lot of dead undergrowth. Do you foresee a return of being able to use controlled burning, or is the risk to people's homes just too great to be able to contemplate that?
So fire has its place. The challenge is in and around homes, right? It's smoke producing, which can be bothersome to people in their house. It's problematic if the fire escapes the control lines. So the use of fire further away from homes is a great tool, and it's a tool we need to expand upon. But what we're finding is with the fire up in Paradise, the fires in the North Bay, that 5 feet around the home is the absolute most critical. Within 30 feet, the second most, and then 100 feet from that being the third most. And if you look at those 3 areas, that needs to be our primary focus, working with homeowners to manipulate fuels, choosing the right plants. We have a lot of hillside communities. So taking, the greenery, the brush down to bare soil is not a good idea, because you're gonna have erosion control issues. So it's really about doing the right things in the right places. And we have one of the things that I know we need to cover tonight is, what is the MWPA doing? So we've got evaluators that are out there, and they're really there for coaching and helping homeowners make the right decisions around their house about what plants should be where. Just because you have a rosemary bush it is a pyrophytic plant, but it's where you place it on the property that's important. Most people want it right outside their plate glass door out of their kitchen because they're going to use it for cooking. Well, you
don't want it within the 5 feet limit.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw what happened in Mill Valley when they approached aggressively approached that 5 foot area. This is something we need to engage our community on the conversations about. And how do you have both a nice looking, aesthetically pleasing home and one that also isn't problematic from a fire protection standpoint? And it's about community conversations. It's things like this tonight where people can ask questions. We can send our evaluators out. They can help make choices on the property that best suit. This is not, Sacramento Valley with cookie cutter houses on the same blocks. And, this is unique, and people live here for that reason. And we have to work together to accomplish those goals.
Well, recently here in San Anselmo, we've had over in Laurel Canyon, a lot of goats working on reducing the underbrush. And that's one of the tools or techniques or approaches that creatively are being used to reduce the amount of material that can explode and burn.
Yeah, goats and grazing is another tool in the toolbox. And, when I look at all of these things, every project, every place has the right tool. It'd be like using a hammer when you need a screwdriver if you're using goats, down Main Street, because they'll eat everything. And, some stuff environmentally needs to stay. And that's where using the right tools for the job, it's going to be crews sometimes. When we do ground disturbing work, we have to make sure we're not spreading broom. So there's a lot that goes into, these projects and programs to make sure that, we're not causing one issue, flipping from one issue to another. So, we've partnered with what I'll call the ESP, which is the Ecologically Sound Practices Group, a coalition of environmental leaders in the community that they came out and did training with our evaluators on plant species, master gardeners, because it's that information that they hold. This is really a community effort, and I think that's what excites me about it. We have everybody from Dave and I, city manager and fire chief, to UC Extension, master gardeners, individuals that are concerned about climate change, erosion control, bee pollination, and we're approaching this that way and using all those skill sets in our community to make the right choices.
And so part of doing that is not only educating yourselves, but also involving the public as much as possible and getting feedback with respect to what to do. Because with fire, in terms of unintended consequences, it's a rough situation like flooding. You can run into a lot of trouble trying to do flood control because everything you do upstream is going to have a downstream impact, and fire is similar that way. Tell us about what the public can do to support the efforts that you're engaging in.
So the public is probably the most important partner of all of this. And, when you look at San Anselmo, for example, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'll guess 90% of the land mass in San Anselmo is privately held. So we're really looking at a forest that's on private property, and we have to treat it that way. So that means that every homeowner is going to have to engage with us. And one of the things is, I think that the fear level is here. The understanding of what to do is down here. It's our job to help bridge that gap. And it's their job to help engage and stay engaged with living with fire presentations that Fire Safe Marin is going to do. The board, the MWPA board tomorrow will be presented with the work plan. It includes a big portion of it is public education and outreach from Fire Safe Marin. And it's attending these things, it's understanding what they can do, and then it's engaging and doing it. We're working on grant programs to help those that know they have issues, but either physically or financially can't work through that. But the best thing they could do is visit Fire Safe Marin. There's some great videos on there from master gardeners now, and they're putting some additional ones on. Just a couple of minutes, with a green waste can, filling it weekly with dead material or cleaning up leaves and gutters, and just some really basic stuff can make a huge difference on the survivability of a house. When you talk about screen material for vents on homes, kind of the home hardening piece, those Vulcan vents is one of the brand names. They're expensive. But if you bought 1/8-inch screen material and put it over your existing vent system, it would have a similar effect to an expensive vent. So there are ways to do this that aren't, crippling expensive, but have big return on the investments. A pile of leaves on a gutter is doomsday for a house in a fire. And even that's a relatively small fire next to you. It could be a house fire that embers land on your roof. And now we have 2 house fires. Or what we all think about, that fear of a fast moving wildfire where embers are raining a half a mile ahead. So there's a lot to do, and visiting Fire Safe Marin, spending a little bit of time watching the videos and understanding is a big step.
So if somebody just types in Fire Safe Marin into the computer, it'll come right up, right?
Yeah, in the Google search, or if it's www.firesafemarin.org, there's a link on marinwildfire.org also, which is the new JPA. There's a link right at the top to Fire Safe Marin.
And so initially, that's the activity that the public can most readily engage in that will support your efforts and develop a better working team between fire officials and the population to deal with our common enemy, which is the out of control wildfire. So tell me about, do you have a disaster preparedness neighborhood resources group coordinator, and what is that person, what's the scope of what they do?
So, for you, your other council members, the 3 town managers that oversee the Ross Valley Fire Department have aggressively pursued disaster preparedness, and doubling down on that investment. We're looking at having a part-time person come on that can help coordinate and organize neighborhoods in the preparedness section. And being prepared for a wildfire is very similar to being prepared for an earthquake, a flood, or any other disaster. And it's really about that preparedness piece. And, understanding that when you receive an alert and warning, you can leave immediately, you know which way to get out. You're prepared to take a go bag with you that has your medications and other things you're going to need for a period of time. All of that helps build resiliency and reduces the loss of life in the event of any of these disasters. So your council, the town managers have directed me as the fire chief to work towards a plan to expand on this. And, I think that our CERT programs are very valuable. It's a lot of time for people to invest, and we recognize that not a lot of people can make that investment. So these get ready programs that, in a relatively short period of time can help a family prepare. This is about, knowing your neighbors. It's about, when you have an elderly neighbor that you're all looking after each other, and especially those, when we look at the fatalities in the Paradise Fire and the Sonoma County fires, overwhelmingly they were seniors, and they may not hear at night. They certainly aren't like our 17, 18-year-old kids that sleep with their cell phone on top of their head. It's probably in another room. They may not be alert and warning systems. With the power shutoffs and the complexity of that, it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure we're working together. And that's really what that NRG program's about. It's about, knowing your neighbors and helping them, and especially doing that in a disaster.
And NRG, that's an acronym for Neighborhood Resources Group?
I think it's Neighborhood Response Group, but really it's not about response. And we don't want to scare people away by participating. We're not asking you to be a responder in the event of an emergency. We're asking you to take that independent action for you and your family to be prepared and be willing to knock on your neighbor's door, especially an elderly neighbor, somebody maybe with disabilities, help them get out in the event of an emergency. We know that our systems aren't perfect, especially when they rely on power. And there's nothing better than having a neighbor that knows where people are at and when they're home and when they're not.
Well, let's say that there's an event and the alarm goes out and people have to evacuate. What's the plan for dealing with the tiny roads that are so much up in the hills around here? And how's the situation going to be prevented where there's a huge traffic jam where everybody's trying to get out all at the same time, the fire's raging, and people are stuck in their cars? And I mean, but if somebody, for example, if that were to happen and there were a traffic jam, what's the best thing for a person to do? Is it to get out and run? Is it to stay in their car? What's a person to do? And tell us also about some of your evacuation planning.
So, yeah, I think this is probably some of the greatest fears our residents have is how do I get out? And traffic's going to be, traffic's bad at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a school day. What's it going to look like when everyone's trying to leave? And I think the key is don't panic. That your survivability factor in your vehicle is very, very high, and it's going to be scary and it's going to be unpleasant. And, I think we all have that vision in our head of the Oakland Hills fire and those cars coming off and honking and running into each other. And really, if they would have just kept their doors closed and stayed in their car and moved with traffic, they would have been safe. It's when we have someone abandon their car in the middle of the road that now no one can get through, and that is problematic. But when you look at the Paradise Fire and the 88 fatalities, God rest their souls, very few of them were in vehicles leaving. And if you have a chance to watch the Netflix video on Paradise, I encourage people to do that because it helps conceptualize what's occurring during an evacuation. And those people were panicked. They were in their cars, but at the end of the day, they all survived. And I think that it was certainly uncomfortable for them, and it was scary, and it was smoky. And there's a school bus with kids on it and two wonderful bus driver and a teacher, I think, that kept everybody calm. The key point is here they survived. So stay in your vehicle, remain as calm as humanly possible. We know you're there. That's, knowing that those evacuations are taking place, we prioritize that and we'll work to get those people out. Usually perimeter control on a fire comes second, unless if we think we can stop the fire to avoid having to do any evacuations. But otherwise, our complete attention turns towards evacuations, that and law enforcement. And we work very close with Central Marin Police Department. They've just implemented a high-low siren for evacuations. So if you hear that high-low siren, and I'll call it the European siren, I do it, but it would be like singing on here, and I think you'll all laugh at me, and it won't be accurate. But that's another mechanism or another tool that the law enforcement has just recently put into place. That means get out. And people often ask, where do I go? How do I know how to get out? Go like you're going to the grocery store, and you want to get down to flatlands. You're going to be fine. You probably will be stuck in your car for some time. What we also learned in the Paradise Fire is just get to a place of safer refuge, meaning a parking lot. We can send resources there and protect 100 cars, 200 cars in a parking lot, rather than have everybody on the street at one time. So in many cases, it's just downhill on pavement to a safer place. And it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to be scared. But we ask that you just stay as calm as possible and not abandon your car in the road.
So it's really the staying cool and not panicking is central, of course, to good decision making, and good decision making saves lives. Let me interrupt for a second, Dave. How are we doing on people who have questions?
We have 3 in the Q&A. Nobody with a hand raised, and I'll just start with the first one. It's from Michael Kamerick. He is part of a new Firewise community in San Anselmo, and they have planned to have an evacuation drill this year, and wondered where they were, and how they can implement that.
So, very timely question. Dan Mahoney and I were on the phone today talking about evacuation drills. So last year we did 2 days of evacuation drills for Ross Valley Fire Department. One covered the Fairfax Sleepy Hollow section. Another was Ross and San Anselmo. We intend to do that same thing this year. I won't give you a date because I have not had a chance to talk to the town manager yet to see if it'll work. And the areas, we generally rotate these evacuation drills through different areas of the town. San Anselmo, I saw what neighborhood you were in, but we're uphill from the Cedars and side by side, and there's Tremesley. So I'm not positive that's going to be inclusive of that neighborhood. And are you uphill from that? I don't know if it's the Cedars in San Anselmo or the one that's on the Santa Fe border.
No, it's probably on Upper Road.
The Ross side.
No, I guess that, yeah, it's Upper Road on the side of Baldy.
Michael is raising his hand right now, so
Let's put him on.
yeah.
Mike?
Welcome, Michael.
I'm unmuted, I believe. Can you hear me?
You are. We can hear you.
Okay. So we're on Sequoia Drive, Upper Sequoia, above United Market and Lucas's place. Not so close to the hill, but very close to Red Hill. Just a little bit north of Red Hill.
The Cedars Storage Park, that area.
Yeah. The issue that we're concerned with is the hill just to the west of us, leading down from us down to the Cedars, where they have their alpacas and sheep and their little corral, all of that. It's very thick with fuel. And the whole problem with that valley is that it's a jumble of jurisdictions. It's San Anselmo, San Rafael County. It's side by side. It's Cedars. It's Tam Cemetery. Tam Cemetery in particular is full of fuel. I mean, the older part of it. It's just lousy with all kinds of eucalyptus shedding and stuff. So we're concerned about that. We would like to think that that could be addressed either through the joint powers action or something else. So that's one issue. But the other issue is that part of our Firewise plan for our first year as a Firewise community was to stage an evacuation drill. And we always understood we needed to have Ross Valley Fire Department collaborate on that. And we're talking about just for our own neighborhood, which is on a one-lane dead-end road. There's one way out, one way in, and it has to support two-way traffic most of the time. So we think the evacuation would be quite difficult or potentially quite challenging. We wanted to practice it at least. We won't get full participation, but we wanted to practice it. And so we're asking about how can we do that? When can we do that? Or will Firewise give us some kind of forbearance if we can't get it done so we can renew our application? All those things.
So I'll start with what I think will make you happy, and that is that the area you're speaking of has been identified as a part of the work plan for this first year in the JPA. So that's the good news, and we do recognize and share your concerns. And it is, it's one of those areas. It has the cedars, it has the cemetery. We've been doing a lot of cutting on eucalyptus in the cemetery, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. So I think you'll be pleased to hear that that was prioritized, and it'll go before the board as part of the work plan tomorrow with support of the town. That was an area that was recognized. And the second piece is the evacuation drill. So yes, we'll absolutely work with you on the evacuation drill. The question is, usually the participation level isn't always great, but what we want to make sure we do is test our evacuation systems, which is the alert and warning system. So ensuring that everybody's registered and that works, that is probably one of the most important pieces of the evacuation drill. So Michael, I will work to connect with you. If you want to send me an email, it's jweber with Weber with one B at rossvalleyfire.org.
Thanks very much. Actually, after I typed that question in, Dan Mahoney called me.
I tell you, Dan's fast.
Yeah.
He's good.
So I couldn't erase the question, but he happened to call me after I typed that question in and sent it in. So I am supposed to call him after the Zoom call is over and hopefully coordinate that kind of thing. I think we have most people, I mean, we have done a lot of education. Who knows what effect that has, but I think most people are on Alert Marin and maybe Nixle. But Alert Marin is the more important one for an immediate evacuation order, correct?
Yeah, and I think, Michael, thank you for bringing that up. Everybody on here should be registered on Alert Marin, and they should convince their neighbors and friends to do the same. It is the single platform we will use for emergency notifications. Nixle is an information platform. It's where we may share information about a road closure or something else. Alert Marin's a must for everybody, and it takes a proactive approach to this because so few people have conventional hard lines in their homes that you should be on there to register your cell phones and other things.
We have emphasized that. If I may, because I didn't see anybody else asking questions, we've identified 3 residents in the neighborhood who could be problematic in getting out. One who's not connected in cyberspace in any way and probably wouldn't get an Alert Marin signal. 2 others who are very frail and slow. One without a car anymore. Our plan is to try to get them to plan to leave the neighborhood when there's a red alert and long before anything might happen. In part because we don't want to spend, if we get an urgent evacuation order, we can't take a half an hour to get somebody out of a house and die in the flames anyway. So we're faced with a very painful decision here, but our plan is to try to get them to agree to go somewhere before things get to the point of evacuation orders. Any other thoughts on that and how to handle this would be welcome.
Yeah, Ford, are you good with me continuing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, this is a challenge, right? We're displacing people that are older on these requests, and it's balancing everything. When we're under red flag conditions, they're not all the same, as odd as that may sound, but a red flag condition in June does not worry me as much as a red flag condition in October. And our fuels are primed by October. Some red flag warnings, a lot of them are upper elevations, so we don't experience the wind down low. But it hits Marin County because of the upper elevations. Mount Tam, it's 1,200 feet and above, let's say. So, watching those things and being prepared never hurts. And if there's an opportunity for those individuals that are non-mobile or would have significant challenges in evacuation, they may sleep better somewhere else anyway. So that's fine to do too. We don't necessarily make that recommendation because we understand all the associated challenges with leaving. But everyone should be on a heightened sense of alert under red flag conditions, because it does mean that we could experience fire growth that is rapid and challenging.
Right. Well, we will try to do the best we can. We do get a lot of wind at our elevation is about 400 feet. And in October, it's very unnerving.
Well, I'll thank you for doing one of the most important things, and it's engaging as a community, developing and becoming a FireWise community, and gathering your neighbors up. You're doing an excellent job, and we can't thank you enough, because this is all about community.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for dialing in, Michael. Really appreciate what you're doing in your neighborhood and contributing this afternoon. Thank you.
Again, my pleasure. Thank you for being available. Very
I'm glad
helpful.
you participated. Do we have anybody else, Dave? You're muted, Dave.
Sorry about that. There's a question from Eileen Burke. In the past fires up north, I saw that some people survived a firestorm by getting into swimming pools. My family has identified the swimming pools on our street in case that ever happens. Does the alert system notify when it's too late to get out, i.e. firestorm, and what to do?
So the alert system, the intention of us using the alert system is to get you out before you need to take refuge in your home or a swimming pool. The challenge with a swimming pool refuge is protecting your airway. And that is the biggest issue in a fire. It's not the actual, usually the fire that gets you. It's the inhalation of superheated gases and smoke that incapacitate you during that. And that can occur whether you're in a swimming pool or not. So everything up for us is about early notification and early evacuation. And there isn't a picture in your house or a document in your home that is worth delaying your leaving for. And it's why we encourage having a go bag. It's having a plan if you have animals. And as awful as this may sound to our animal lovers, which I'm one of, animals do pretty darn well on their own instinctively. And if you can't get the cat or the dog and they're outside, you need to leave. And as hard as that may be for some people, that's where we see some of the greatest challenges is people staying, and then it's problematic. So, the alert system should warn you in time to evacuate. When we look at our systems, we are issuing those orders based on an anticipation of the fire coming. So we want to give you enough time to get out and evacuate. That's our first goal. And that should be yours also, not trying to find the swimming pool. If for some reason there's no other choice and you can't get out and you're stuck, that could be a very, very, very last resort.
Gotcha. One last question that actually Michael had asked this before. He was asking regarding the high-low siren. Does that mean everyone gets out? All of San Anselmo, if you hear that?
So if you're hearing those sirens, they're on the actual police cars, and you would probably be in proximity if you can hear it that you should evacuate. So those sirens aren't that loud, and if they're coming down your street on a high-low siren, that's direction that you need to leave.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, do we have anything else?
Not at this point. No hands raised and no Q&A left over questions. So.
All right. I think we're coming to the end of our program, and thank you so much, Chief Weber, for it's not just taking the time today. It's everything that you do. I've known you for a while now in different capacities for me as a council member, as a fire board member, and just as a regular person. And I appreciate your availability, and more than that, your very matter-of-fact, direct, and honest demeanor. It makes a big difference not to get straight talk, not guff, and that's what we need in our officials. So thank you for that.
Well, and Mayor, thank you, and I appreciate your service and your dedication. And for Dave is a wonderful partner as the town manager, cares deeply about the community, and it makes it very enjoyable to work for both of you. So, and all of our constituents out there. And thank everybody for joining tonight, because it's an important discussion. Appreciate it.
It is. So in closing, I want to note that Friday evening at 6, there will be the Creekside Commons ribbon cutting ceremony. You may have noticed that where La Part used to be has been turned into a temporary plaza that's going to be known as Creekside Commons, which is a part of reimagining Creek Park. And for a year, the abutment that plaza will provide the support for that plaza is going to be there before it's demoed. And we also want to thank our Public Works Director, Sean Condry, and his staff that's been working really hard, first to demolish the pre-existing building, and now to make the plaza. So if you're around, put on your mask, and remember, 6 feet apart. It's hard, but it's really important. The numbers, the COVID infection numbers are going up all over the place. It's a huge pain in the hindquarters to have to impede our lives with these precautions. But if we don't do it, our infection rates are going to go up. And we don't want that. So try to make it Friday at 6 p.m. Down there where La Part used to be for the ceremony, and see you in a couple weeks. Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.